Rambam. We're still in the laws of the sabbatical year, the 7th year, where all land goes fallow in the land of Israel. Actually, what we learned in Chumash today, very apropos for what we're learning in Rambam, because we need to know the borders of the land of Israel, because it's those borders. Actually, it's within those borders, at least. It's a little more complicated than that. We won't go into now because we already learned that. But we need to know the borders in order to know what's the land of Israel where the sabbatical year applies. Yeah. Okay, we're in chapter 9. Now, it is a positive commandment. Listen to this. This is pretty heavy-duty idea over here. To nullify a loan, in the sabbatical years, the verse says, and all of those that bear debt must release their hold. You hear that? A person who demands payment of debt after the sabbatical year pass violates a negative commandment, as it is stated. One shall not demand payment from his friend and his brother. So there's a law in the Torah that a Jew has to lend money. Actually, it's the highest form of tzedakah. We learned this about a month ago in the laws of gifts to the poor, if you recall. The highest form is giving a loan, because this way you keep the dignity of the individual, that, it's not a handout because they're going to pay it back, but it's a free loan. They're not paying interest. When it comes to the sabbatical year, that loan, null and void. He doesn't have to pay it back.
Yeah, or just
period.
7 years, your file is cleared.
Yeah.
Go something. Unless it's alimony or something like that.
Now don't get overly distraught. Menachem Hillel just lent somebody $1 million, and now he's worried. How's he going to get the $1 million back? Because this guy is going to wait. Well, we're going to learn all about this. I mean, I don't know how far we'll get. We'll see. But just to let you know, that's a biblical law. The rabbis saw that people were lending money because of it. So they made something called the pruzbul. And you might remember it because we said it a couple of years ago on the sabbatical year. Like 2 years ago was sabbatical year. Or 2 or 3 years ago was sabbatical year, right? Shemitah year. Then was Hakel year, comes the year after, right? The 8th year, the year after, right? So it's 2 years ago. Hakel finished 2 years ago. So it's 3 years ago finished the sabbatical year. Okay. And we're gonna have another one in another 3 years, right? So when we do Hataras Nedarim, we're gonna learn about it. When you annul your vows on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, that year we said, I am giving my loans to the court, that they hold on to it. That way you can collect, because it's not a personal loan anymore. It's now sort of stamped by the court, held by the court in spiritual sense, at least, right?
7 years.
No, after the 7th year, you can't. We just learned earlier, you can't collect.
But if you give it to.
But if you give it before that,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
or during the year at least, right? Then it's given over. It's not a personal loan anymore, and therefore you could collect. But that's rabbinic law. That's rabbinic law. Why? Because biblical law, people are like, hesitant to give a loan. And we learned that in Rambam, that you shouldn't be hesitant even on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, going into the sabbatical year, to give a loan. That's pretty heavy duty. Huh? So if I come to you on the eve of Rosh Hashanah,
You'll give it.
yeah. Fascinating. So if you, then in the sabbatical year, when it passed, only when it passed, right? During the sabbatical year, right, it passed, then you shall not demand the payment of a friend of loan. Okay. Nullification of debts applied according to scriptural law only in the era of Jubilee year is observed. And the sale of land is also nullified. Right? Because what happens in a Jubilee year? everything goes back, right? So in a sense, you're really leasing. The difference here is with money, you didn't lease the money, you gave the money, right?
Yeah, or is it, I didn't get it done.
Yeah.
But try to do it like that.
But the land has been sold, returned to the original owners without a financial payment. This matter was conveyed through the chain of tradition. In other words, this point, a nullification of debts, that it's only when the Jubilee, right, the Yovel is observed, that's a matter of tradition. Our sages declared that in the era when you nullify the sale of land, you nullify the debts everywhere, whether in Eretz Yisrael or in the diaspora. The era when you do not nullify the land of sale, you do not nullify debts anywhere, even in Eretz Yisrael.
Okay,
So what does it say here, just on diaspora?
look outside Israel.
Like that's everywhere, but then.
Yes, not just Israel.
So let's look at number 3. According to the rabbinic law, the nullification of debts applies in the present age in all places, even though the Jubilee year is not observed. Right? But we have to be very clear. Rambam is always first teaching us the biblical law, right? But then, that's not the law. Rabbinic law is what we follow. We don't follow biblical law, right? And so but yet we need to understand what's rabbinic and what's biblical. So biblical is only when there is the nullification, when there is Jubilee year, is there nullification of vows. I mean, a nullification of the debt, right? That's biblical. But rabbinic, it exists today, even here in the diaspora.
Contemporary.
Rabbinic, which means contemporary.
We have to follow.
That's why we have to make that statement when we annul the vows on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, right? Otherwise, if you have a debt, you're not allowed to collect it, right?
Yeah, so it's contemporary, of course. Thank you.
Well, I mean, we didn't learn that here, but that'll be later, right?
It says in the footnote that it is.
Yeah.
Or at least it should be as a custom.
This decree instituted so that the concept of nullification of debts will not be forgotten by the Jewish people. So it's interesting. The rabbi said to keep it, right? That this law should not be forgotten. Okay, number 4. The sabbatical year does not nullify debts until its conclusion. Right. So, in other words, it's not when the sabbatical year begins, which is interesting because you would think the opposite. Because what happens at the beginning of the sabbatical year to your land? It's not yours anymore. It's like belongs to everybody, doesn't belong to anybody, right? Therefore, you don't have rights over the land to go and plant and go and right and so on. Now you could take from it. Well, these are the laws that we've learned, right? And at the end of 7 years, you shall effect a remission. This is a matter of remission. At the end of 7 years, a time sabbatical year during the holiday of Sukkot, just as in the instance of the event that takes place in the 7 years, so too the nullification of death takes place after the 7 years. So this is what the verse says, and that's why the law is such. Therefore, if one lent money to a colleague, even in the sabbatical year itself, he may demand payment of his debt for the entire year. When the sun sets on the night of Rosh Hashanah on the 8th year, the debt is nullified. Got it? Okay. Huh?
Footnote says that.
Got it.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, footnote. It's not a footnote here. It's the Rambam's teachings.
Yeah, but there's footnote the entire year, number 10, or 10.
Okay. If number 5, if one slaughtered a cow and divided it under the supposition that today would be declared Rosh Hashanah, but instead that a day was added to Elul, and thus that way, that day was the final day of sabbatical year. The money is lost. For the sabbatical year ended while the debt was exist. right? Because we're talking about a time when, not by calendar, the new month came, right? It was done by witnesses, right? So there was added a day, and now what you slaughtered a cow, you divided it. And I guess because people were, they divided it, considered the meal could not pay for in a manner. I had a cow, right? Holiday's coming, Rosh Hashanah's coming. So I slaughtered it, thinking, well, today's, is going to be the holiday. Will become the, right? But it's not. It was one day extended of Elul. And I gave you your pieces. You owe me money.
Read the butcher.
Yes.
Yeah, because it says it's secrets between the grocer and.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. It's my, whether I'm the butcher or not, it's my cow. And I gave you a part of the cow for the holiday, and you're going to pay me for it. Means you owe me money, right? But it was done on the last day of the year of the sabbatical year. I thought it would be after the sabbatical year, but in the end, it wasn't. It was on the sabbatical year, the last day. Now that night became a new year. The debt is annulled.
It says here that the butcher demands immediate payment compared to the grocer who gives credit.
Yeah, okay, fine. I'm not, the point over here, is, that it becomes annulled that night as a result, right?
Okay, sure.
I mean, that's speaking about the way it was probably, Okay. Number 6, the sabbatical year nullifies a loan, even a loan supported by promissory note, which creates a lien on one's possessions. Even that. If, however, the board designated a field to serve as payment for the loan, it is not nullified. In other words, you have a particular field that you've designated, right? Since the land has been designated as payment, it is as if the loan has already been paid, right? Since you've designated a specific land. Sabbatical year also nullifies obligation to take an oath. For proof text states that you shall not demand neither payment nor an oath. Meaning, let's say I lent Yankel $100, and Yankel only says, no, you only lent me 50. That means he has an obligation, a biblical obligation to take an oath because he admitted half, right?
Yes.
But once the sabbatical year passed, it nullifies that oath that he has to take, and therefore he doesn't have to pay me. Okay? When does the above apply? With regard to an oath imposed by judges and the like, obligations that were he to accept them the sabbatical year would nullify them. But oaths taken by a watchman or partners and the like, oaths that were he to admit the obligation, he would be required to pay after the sabbatical year. He's required to take the oath after the sabbatical year. What's the difference? Because watchman, the explanation is that unlike a loan, the property being watched is considered as always being in the possession of the owner. Hence, the obligation for it is not nullified by the sabbatical year.
You can be compelled to take an oath.
Yeah, okay. If a person gave a colleague a loan and then demanded payment, the colleague denied the obligation and remained in denial when the conclusion sabbatical year arrived, and then he admitted his obligation, or witnesses came and testified to the effect that after sabbatical year was conducted, the obligation is not nullified. Why? Because he didn't admit it. So it's not nullified. That's interesting. Why? Because if I lent Yankel $100 and he's not admitting it, That means in reality, in law, it's not substantiated that he owes me $100. And if he only admitted it after the sabbatical year is finished, that's only when it became substantiated. So now he owes it, even though the year passed. Right? Because it's only when there's a substantiated loan that the loan could be nullified. But if it's in question, so then it's not for sure a loan. Right? In law. Right? We're not talking about in anything else, but in law. You follow the distinction? A very subtle idea here. Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah.
I have the question, why would he admit it? But that's wrong.
That's irrelevant.
Exactly.
That's irrelevant.
Exactly.
Wait, he felt guilty.
No,
Whatever.
I think that's
And afterwards, maybe he felt guilty, and it's after sabbatical year, so he thinks it's nullified anyways.
Yeah.
So now I can come clean. It's nullified. No, it's not nullified because it was never substantiated. It was never substantiated as a reality in law because you denied it. So it's not, we don't know, is it in law a loan or not a loan? If the party agrees it's a loan, well, now it's a fact in law. Now a fact in law is sabbatical year when it ends, nullifies it. Unbelievable. Yeah. Number 9, when a person lends money to a colleague and sets the time of payment in 10 years' time, it is not nullified by the sabbatical year. Why? The rationale is that although ultimately the command do not demand payment will apply, at present he may not demand payment. If he said that he would not demand payment and the debt is nullified by the sabbatical year. Well, I'm not sure I got that clearly.
Yes, he has to demand it after the 10th year. He still has to demand it.
I'm lending money and I'm right, and the payment is in 10 years. So it's not nullified. The sabbatical year, we're saying it doesn't nullify. Why? Although ultimately the command do not demand payment will apply, at the moment, in other words, there's another nuance in the law. Not only do you have to substantiate between the two parties that there was indeed a loan, right? But you have to substantiate also that there is a payment that needs to be made now. But if I'm telling you, you don't need to make payment until 10 years, that means there's no loan due. There's no debt right now that's due. It's due, and therefore it's not something to be nullified.
In 10 years, it's the debt.
Well, in 10 years, it's not a sabbatical year, then I could, right? But if I stipulate that, if all I did was stipulate, I'm not going to demand payment. Not going to demand the payment, but the payment is due. What a nuance on that. Payment is due. I'm just not going to demand it. That means it is due, the payment. Right? Then there is due payment. I'm just not demanding it. But the fact of the loan is that there is it's due. I'm just not going to ask for it. I'm not going to, right? And the first one is, no, it is not due now. In 10 years. You're paying 10 years. If I would say, pay whenever you have it, so then no, then it would be nullified. Because it means it's due any time. Right? It's due whenever you want to pay it. But that means any moment. Therefore, it would be nullified. But I'm saying, no. You're paying in 10 years. That means I'm saying it's not due till then. Not only I won't demand it from you, it's more than I'm not demanding. It's just, it's not a debt now.
That's right.
In a debt that is due. Wow. What a nuance.
Debt until that. Yeah. I have to keep remembering this parameter, so I don't have to like.
Right, yeah, but well, yeah, why are you acting this way? Why are you acting this way? Yeah. Oh, okay. I'd love to continue, but I'm sorry. No, I can't. My gosh. Huh?
So fascinating. How
Yeah,
can you
a
accept
good
the
question.
way?
You have a good question. I don't have a good answer.
Because you feel like it.
Whatever. I feel I feel the so much.
There's a need out there for you that you're not aware of yet, but you have.
No, I know what I am aware of.